Episode 1 Warden and Colonial Cold Weather Uniforms. Welcome back! In this part of the series, we'll be taking a look at the possible real-world inspirations of the game's cold weather gear for both sides. Next to managing themselves and the possibility of combat, the soldier must also face and survive nature and environmental conditions. In the game's post-winter update, Siege Camp are determined to emulate weather conditions and the problems and advantages the players must face and weather them. Some real-world history before we start. Cold weather clothing for fighting is not modern nor new. Soldiers have long been fighting in the cold before when they cannot avoid it. But conflict can happen no matter what is planned. The predecessors of the modern European-style winter coats show up as early as the 17th century, with large coat jackets being the norm gradually until the mid-18th century, when they are separated and produced entirely into a separate article focused on keeping a soldier warm in non-mild conditions on campaign. By the 20th century, these heavy greatcoats and other winter gear have become sophisticated, machined to handle harsher conditions, waterproofed with new textiles, and in some cases even camouflaged to help blend in with the snow. In Foxhole, this is no different. Now let us begin, like always, with the Wardens first. Named the Caoivish Parka, this heavy single-breasted greatcoat in horizon blue is certainly rather thick and will keep the Warden soldier comfortable in the freezing conditions on the move in their icy northern climate. Now there are several very interesting features on this outfit, which differ from the usual Warden capote style overcoat, which we've covered in the prior video. As I previously mentioned, the coat is not only single-breasted, but the buttons themselves are quite different. I assume it is single-breasted due to the defined seam being on the left of the model with a natural-looking material fold. I personally think these are either press studs or are part of a cruder, more old-fashioned hook fastening system. They might even be wooden and edged with sheep or goat fur too. The main body of the coat might be some sort of thick cotton wool blend dyed blue to match the general aesthetics of the Warden faction. The cuffs and collar lapel system clearly are some sort of animal fur, goat or calf, to obviously help retain the heat. Most fascinating, however, is the first time with the Wardens we're seeing some form of undershirt with said coat. The rolled up colour of some sort of winter wear issued sweater, which I'm hoping is more comfortable than intolerably itchy. The Warden soldier, of course, still has his trusty leather ammunition and grenade pouches we covered in the previous video for combat situations. It's still better than freezing to death in general. And finally, the last bit of the body is a pair of brown leather gloves, another uniform and Warden first in my eyes. Now, like with the Warden battle dress overcoat, we've once again got multiple influences from over many different winter coats in the 19th and 20th century now, but we'll narrow this down. We can point out at least two. The British Army 1940 dismounted pattern greatcoat, and the Red Army M41 field overcoat. I might add we'll be seeing a few Soviet and Russian examples, and suggestions as well, as the Russian people and those around them know too well about fighting in the cold snow. Headgear. This one is no mystery. This fur helmet is blatantly a Ushanka-style hat with the flaps down. An interesting twist for an army that is usually more Francophile romantic European in design. When it comes to real-world influences and like though, with the greatcoat examples we've seen, it is simple to produce and keeps you warm. One interesting thing to make note of here is the front of the faux shanka appears to be some sort of modern cockade or circular identification metal badge. Colonial topcoat. We'll be looking at both the Colonial winter gear and the wet weather gear sets, made for handling their own natural weather conditions down the southern colonial lands. Now, amusingly, this one looks to me more like a Parka than the Warden example, complete with actually having a double layered hood. This padded jacket, of course, like with the Colonial faction's uniforms, is more modernised and unlike the greatcoat styles we have previously covered with the Wardens. It also hints at the general love of their padding, which shows up in other uniforms we'll be covering in future videos. Russia once more shows up. This time the real-world influence was playing the Red Army's Second World War Telegreka jacket. Also wrapped around their upper arm in place of the signature cape mantle, we've got something new. We've got some sort of arm flash? Perhaps for identification in snowstorms here, instead of maybe providing comfort from the mild or wet weather. Like with the Warden counterpart as well, obviously the Colonial is equipped with their standard battle rattle belt and pouches for combat. Legionary's oil coat. To deal with the mud and rain, the Colonial soldier has also been equipped with a more traditional old-world looking oilcloth overcoat. Oilcloth itself is a more old-fashioned and cheap alternative to waterproofing cloth, but in the real world is used more commonly by sailors and fishermen. My real-world example here is a Royal Navy jacket rather than the late 19th century style overcoat the game has. This coat has been specifically altered to deal with the rain and mud and fighting in the First World War style entrenchments and no man's land environment players will encounter in game. Perhaps this was the older fashioned overcoats of the Colonials in the prior war? An interesting detail to add here, the older shoulder mantle section of the coat has been modified with a modern up-to-date edition of a waterproofed hood. So this is probably a Mark II variant of the original. General conclusion. Once again, I feel the themes of the game setting have been followed to the letter, but also sadly once again my complaints fall into the time-saving using of prior assets. Now, I understand of course partly the theme is simply these are normal soldiers and that this is their standard issue equipment. Still though, I feel a little bit more can be done to make both the sides' outfits look a little bit more unique and, closer to the faction's themes as well. This time I suggest the following briefly for either side if they ever revisit these outfits or make or upgrade alternate versions. Wardens. Valenki style Red Army fur-lined boots for their Greatcoat set. And for the Colonials, brown leather Kisra style Red Army marching boots for their cold weather gear set. Also for the Colonials, a matching fur cap to mirror the Warden's one. I suggest a British Army Second World War style cap comforter, which can be worn under a standard issue helmet as they did in real life. And now we're done with yet another video. Like always, march on the right side of the road now and do take care out there. Please don't freeze to death.